In the earlier two videos, we looked at getting Excel workbooks into Power Query and Power BI, and we looked at bringing in a relational database, in particular an Access database, into Power Query and therefore Power BI. Now what I want to look at is what if I want to get a text file or a CSV file. I'm going to get the data from within Power Query Editor, and I'm going to use the New Source button, and from there I'm going to choose text/CSV, comma separated values. I'm then going to choose the file I want to bring in, which is the product subcategories file, which is a CSV file, and I'm just going to click open. A wee window will come up where it's actually showing me what that text file looks like, and I'm just going to simply bring it in as it looks. So I'm going to go OK. I have brought the data in. I can see it here in my Power Query Editor. I can see it just did two steps. It looked at the source and then it changed the data types. So it's going to need a little bit of massaging because I can see the column headings are not correct and we've got some really odd data in here. But before I walk away from this particular query, I do want to rename it. So using the query settings, I'm just going to click in here and I'm just going to call it Bike Products by Month. So you can name your query something meaningful, something intelligent, something that people will understand who are going to be using the data. Common business terms. Don't make them too long, don't make them too short, and try to avoid things like underscore. Actually use spaces and give them proper names that people can relate to. I can always resize this little panel here too, and then I can clearly see the names of my queries. So use the properties to rename any of the queries. Now, we've brought in a text file or a CSV file, we've brought in a database, and we've even brought in Excel workbooks. But what if we want to enter data directly into Power Query because we do not have a data source in place? That's when you go to the Power Query Editor and instead of grabbing a new source or looking at recent things you've brought in, you want to enter data. So I want to look at this button. If I click this button here, I can create a table. The first column, I'm going to actually call that name. So I click on the column heading, and in fact I double click it, and then I just type name. If I click this plus, I can create another column, and again I click it, and then double click it, and I call it phone. So you can make as many columns as you need with that plus. If I insert one too many columns, I can right click and I can delete that column. Now, as far as a name, I'm going to type in the first person, which is me, Kathy Barker, and whatever phone number. And then this will let me insert or add another row. And so I'm going to put Sue Jones and her phone number. Here I can name the table, and I'm just going to call this table Volunteers List. Let me just check my notes, that is correct. Volunteers List. And I've effectively created a table. I mean, you can get as busy as you want to, but I think that illustrates the point. So if I click OK, my query or table is created. It appears on the left-hand side of my Power Query Editor and is in fact the 14th query. I can see that there's two steps here. The source really doesn't say much except that I created it, and the data types. So not a lot happening there. If I then go to the close and apply button, what I'll find in my Power BI is I'll no longer just have, as I currently have here on the right hand side, I will no longer just have 3 fields in my fields pane. If I close and apply, all 14 of them will then be loaded, connected and shown in the Power BI user interface. And here they are here. So transform data will throw you back into Power Query. Close and apply will then load it back into Power BI. And by opening and closing the chevrons on the left-hand side, you can see, for example, Volunteers List has got 2 columns, name and phone, and I can close the chevron as well. So we've brought data in from a variety of locations.